The static on the radio was unbearable, but it was the only sound left in the world. Claire adjusted the dials, her fingers trembling as she tried to find a clear frequency. The small, dimly lit room of the radio station was her sanctuary. But even here, the stench of decay seeped through the cracks in the walls. Outside, the city was silent, save for the occasional moan or the shuffling of feet on broken glass. The dead walked the streets, and Claire was one of the last living souls left. She had been holed up in the station for weeks, broadcasting messages of hope to anyone who might still be listening. But hope was a scarce commodity in a world overrun by the undead. The power grid had failed, and the station was running on a backup generator that was on its last legs. Claire knew it was only a matter of time before the lights went out for good. "Hello, is anyone out there?" Claire's voice crackled through the speakers, her words echoing in the empty studio. She waited, holding her breath, hoping for a response, but there was only silence. She leaned back in her chair, running a hand through her greasy, unwashed hair. The days had blurred together, and she had lost track of time. The only thing that kept her going was the thought that someone, somewhere, might still be alive. She had to keep broadcasting, even if it was just for herself. The sound of glass breaking downstairs snapped her out of her thoughts. Her heart raced as she grabbed the baseball bat and ran. All the static on the radio grew louder, filling the empty church with its eerie, unrelenting noise. The microphone stood silent, its red light dimmed, as if it too had given up. The generator sputtered, its fuel nearly spent, and the lights flickered ominously. Outside, the city was a graveyard, the streets littered with abandoned cars, shattered glass, and the remnants of a world that had once thrived. But in the shadows, something stirred. Claire's body lay motionless in the church, her blood pooling on the cold stone floor. The zombies that had overwhelmed her shuffled away, their hunger momentarily sated. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint drip of blood from the floor. Then, her fingers twitched, her eyes snapped open, but they were no longer the warm brown they had been in life. They were clouded, milky, and lifeless. She sat up slowly, her movements jerky and unnatural, her head tilted to the side as if listening to a sound only she could hear. The static, it called to her. Claire rose to her feet, her body moving with a strange purpose. She stumbled out of the church, her steps unsteady but deliberate. The streets were empty, the dead having moved on to other hunting grounds. She walked with a singular focus, drawn to the source of the static, the radio station. Back at the station, the generator finally gave out. The lights died, plunging the studio into darkness. The only sound was the faint hum of the backup battery, keeping the radio equipment alive. The microphone's red light flickered weakly, and the static grew louder, more insistent. Claire reached the station, her hands clawing at the barricaded door. She didn't feel the splinters digging into her flesh as she tore at the wood. The door gave way, and she stumbled inside, her lifeless eyes fixed on the studio. She moved to the microphone, her decaying fingers brushing against it. The static stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Claire's voice came through the speakers, distorted and unnatural. "Hello, is anyone out there?" The signal was stronger now, broadcasting far beyond the city. In the distance, other zombies stopped, their heads turning toward the sound. They began to move, drawn to the station like moths to a flame. Miles away, in a makeshift shelter, a group of survivors huddled around a radio. They had been scavenging for supplies when they picked up the signal. The voice was faint, but it was unmistakably human. "Did you hear that?" One of them whispered, his eyes wide with hope. "Someone's alive out there. We have to go," another said, gripping a rifle tightly. "If there's someone broadcasting, they might know where it's safe." The group debated, their fear of the outside world warring with their desperation for hope. Finally, they decided to risk it. They packed their supplies and set out, following the signal. Claire stood in the studio, her voice repeating the same message over and over. "Hello, is anyone out there?" The zombies were gathering outside, their moans growing louder as they surrounded the building. They didn't attack. They simply waited, as if guided by some unseen force. The survivors reached the city, their hearts pounding as they navigated the desolate streets. The closer they got to the station, the more zombies they encountered. But the creatures didn't attack. They simply watched, their empty eyes following the group's every move. "This isn't right," one of the survivors muttered, his grip tightening on his weapon. "They're waiting for something." They reached the station, their breath catching in their throats as they saw the horde gathered outside. The door was open, and the faint glow of the microphone's red light beckoned them inside. "We can't go in there," one of them said, his voice trembling. "It's a trap." But another, a woman named Elena, stepped forward. "We have to. If there's someone alive in there, we can't leave them." The group hesitated, then followed her inside. The studio was dark, the air thick with the stench of decay. They found Claire standing at the microphone, her back to them. Her voice continued to broadcast, but it was no longer human. It was a guttural, distorted growl. "Claire," Elena whispered, her heart sinking as she realized the truth. Claire turned, her milky eyes locking onto theirs. The zombies outside began to move, their moans growing louder. The survivors backed away, their weapons raised, but it was too late. The horde descended, overwhelming them in seconds. The radio signal continued to broadcast, the static growing louder and more distorted. Claire's voice echoed through the air, a chilling reminder of what had been lost. The zombies stood still once more, their heads tilted as if listening. In the distance, another radio crackled to life. A faint voice broke through the static. "Hello, is anyone out there?" The horde turned, their movements slow but deliberate, and began to shuffle toward the sound. The cycle had begun again.